Okay, all right. So I always like to say whenever I talk somewhere that I'm not preaching today. Unlike okay, it's okay, it's
Because
okay.
it's hitting the fan.
It was
right?
John. It's okay. So I'm not preaching today, and the reason I always say that is because you might notice that I'm going to riff on Bible verses, but I'm not going to exposit them the way Edwin did. So I just wanted you to give me a little bit of grace there. But I'm glad you're here, and like David said, I've been to all three of these things, and I would come even if I wasn't speaking. So these are wonderful, and you might expect that I'm going to give you some kind of a fishing update. I put a little blank spot here so I could tell you about all the fish I caught today, but I'm just going to move on because I didn't catch anything today. Okay, so the topic today, John assigned me the task to speak on how to distinguish between friends and enemies in our time, 2024. As Christians, we have to navigate a world that is less and less tolerant of not only our beliefs held in faith, but also just our very existence, our willingness to speak those beliefs in the public realm. The world is not as tolerant of that as it used to be. There was a very recent article in Mother Jones. Mother Jones, you don't read it. It's a nonprofit socialist propaganda magazine. But anyway, a lot of my friends were quoted in it, and they also quoted Reverend Doug Wilson disapprovingly, of course. And here's what he said. He said, "It used to be that the sexually troubled would have to keep their kinks hidden away in the closet. Now it is the conservative Christian who keeps his virtues hidden in the recesses of the closet." Now, we kind of know this is true, but let me give you a couple stories to show you how much this is true. I recently took a contract recruiting for a conservative Christian business. It's a tech company, and they were looking for my help to find some software engineers for their company. So they have a tech business, they're aggressively growing, but they're also aggressively political. And they're very, clearly Christian. They don't hide that in any way. And they needed to find software engineers that were okay with that. And so I took the job, and I figured it would be a difficult search, right? I said the tech industry, a lot of liberals in the tech industry. I figured it'd be a hard search, and then I did, I had a lot of conversations with people, worked at Google, Facebook, stuff like that. And I'd get into the job, and everyone was really interested until I said, "Oh yeah, by the way, this is a very anti-abortion company." Of course, you get the thanks, no thanks, or sometimes just hang up and curse words and stuff like that. But honestly, I was surprised how many conservative Christians I found at Facebook and Google and Amazon. And they were hidden conservatives. They felt like when they heard what I had to say, they were like, "Wow, this sounds like a breath of fresh air. This sounds like perfect for me," because they felt like they were, always, one step away from getting fired. One step away, not only getting fired, but also being blacklisted. Because these companies, they all kind of share information too. I talked to people who had been fired from companies because somebody didn't like him at work, found their secret Twitter feed, and that was all it took. In essence, these conservative Christians had been forced into the closets of their companies. The world has changed, and it's currently changing. We need to be much more careful navigating our daily interactions to get through it than we used to. And to do that, we need to cultivate an ability to distinguish our friends from our enemies. Let me give you another story. This one's maybe a little bit more relatable to some of you. There's a popular, pretty conservative theology blogger. He's okay. He's the kind of guy that's pretty predictable. His blog posts are pretty standard stuff. Every now and then he says something interesting, but for the most part, you could predict exactly what the article is going to say just by the title. Very vanilla. I'm not a big fan of him, to be honest. And I'm not going to name him because the story is not about whether I like him or not. But one day he posted this to social media. Let's listen to this. It's very innocuous. He posted, "I had to discipline my son tonight. It's not the first time, but I'm heartbroken. It's necessary, but I hate it so much. It's especially difficult since he's such a good boy. He's such an easy boy to parent, but he's still a sinner, and since I love him, I must discipline him." He doesn't get any more specific than that. That's the whole message. Pretty innocuous, right? I mean, in my opinion, it's overly emotional, maybe a little hyperbolic. I mean, heartbroken. I mean, come on. But he's trying to make a theology point. So, I just kind of see that stuff and I just, I know what he's trying to say. So I just move on. I don't think anything of it. Nothing weird, nothing offensive about it. Pretty basic. But he instantly got a deluge of angry messages. Many of them threatening to call Child Protective Services on. Because in his post, he admitted, remember, I read you the whole post, but they said he admitted beating his son, which obviously he didn't do. Now, I don't know if anyone actually did call Child Protective Services, but he felt like he had to issue an explanation, which he did. And to be honest, in my opinion, it made it worse because it didn't make any sense. Basically, he said that he didn't mean he was spanking his son, but rather he was sleep training him, and that the sleep training is what made him heartbroken over his son's sin of, I guess, not wanting to go to sleep. I don't know really what he was talking about, but to me, I didn't care about any of it. Whether he was spanking his son or sleep training him, I didn't care at all. But you got to see, he's one of the good guys, and I treat him as a friend, right? He's a friend of mine. So when I see stuff like that, I don't instantly think, let me try to destroy this guy. For a lot of people did. He made a big mistake when he posted that because he has a lot of friends on the internet, but he failed to recognize that the internet is not your friend. So if you don't hear anything else I say today, please hear this. The internet is not your friend. Anyway, so as I said, we have to be able to distinguish the face of a friend and the face of an enemy. It sounds basic, it sounds stupid, it's like obvious, but it's true. We have to be able to do this. Now, we've got moral obligations to both friends and enemies. That's clear in the Bible. But don't let anyone trick you into thinking that friends and enemies are the same. They are not the same. And our activities in dealing with both have to be different. Let's identify friends. Again, forgive me, this is going to sound basic, but it's important to think this through. There's a lot that can be said about how to identify a friend, but I think obviously the safe thing to do is to open up the book. Now, I don't have the Bible in front of me, but I wrote the Bible down here. Here's a few verses that I like. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. That's Proverbs 17:17. Here's Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Proverbs 27:6. Faithful are the words of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. There's tons of passages like this that describe what a friend does, how a friend acts. But my favorite thing, and this is probably maybe the closest to a definition, comes from the Lord himself, Jesus Christ. In the book of John, he is talking and he says this, "As the Father loved me, I also have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you, and that your joy may be full. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends. You are my friends, if you do whatever I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I heard from my Father, I have made known to you." I think this passage is key to discerning friends. Now, of course, Jesus is talking about himself laying down his life for his friends. He's calling his disciples friends. Many hours of sermons have been preached on that. There's a lot of profound stuff in there. It's just hard to grasp, like the Lord of the universe, the Creator, is our friend. Sometimes you just got to let that marinate for a bit and think that through. I don't know if we can possibly understand that. But here's the point. Definition of a friend. We know a friend will lay down his life for another friend. And, situations like that where you're at the moment of truth, you might have to give your life for your friend. Those are real situations. They happen from time to time. But those moments are few and far between. So we have to draw something else from this. So here's what I've picked from this. If a friend will die for you, then I think it's safe to say that a friend will not take an opportunity to destroy you. That seems pretty reasonable. If a friend will lay down his life for you, then certainly that includes not destroying you, resisting the opportunity to destroy you. Now, I think this comes in many forms, but I think one of the ones that we face the most the most often in our day-to-day lives, in person, and anytime we're doing anything public, I think it has to do a lot. Well, the way it plays out is with your reputation. Not a lot of people are seeking to kill you. I mean, that does happen, but not a lot of people are seeking to kill you. But I think a lot of people seek to destroy your reputation. A friend will not seek to destroy your reputation. So much in life is connected to your reputation. Your income is connected to your reputation. Your employability is connected to your reputation. Your credibility, obviously connected to your reputation. A friend, if they will lay down their life for you, will not seek to do damage or be careless with your reputation. Sounds obvious, I know, but I'll give you another Bible verse. He who covers a transgression seeks love, but he who repeats a matter separates friends. Friends don't try to destroy your reputations, but enemies do try to destroy your reputation. That's an easy distinction to make. It's an easy distinction to make, but sometimes it can be difficult to prove. But in my experience, there's like a gut feeling that you get, whether someone could talk bad about you, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily trying to destroy your reputation. But sometimes you just know that they are. There's a lot of fine people out there, good believers, brothers of the Lord, all that. But in many ways, they treat me, a lot of my friends, like enemies. So I don't trust them. I would never go to them for help. I would never confide in them with struggles. I wouldn't hang out with them unless I tell an off-color joke and they try to use it against me. It's sad that this is the case with people that are in the Lord, but it's true. You have to watch out for people who would not be careful with your reputation. And here's the thing, I want to make something clear in case it's not already clear. When I'm talking enemies and friends, what I'm not saying is in the cosmic sense that these are friends and enemies, like in the ultimate sense. Like here's an example. Think about this for a second, and try to think this through without trying to be too pure about it. That doesn't make any sense, but just hear how this lands. There are instances when you can have a friend that is an unbeliever and enemies who are believers. Let me say that again. You can have friends that are unbelievers and enemies who are believers. Again, we're not talking about the cosmic sense in the ultimate sense, but just in our day-to-day interactions. Think about wars, for example, like actual physical wars, nation against nation. Maybe think of World War II. Now, the enemy in World War II was Germany, and American soldiers, they're tasked with killing German soldiers. So the question is, were there Christians in the ranks of Germany's soldiers? I mean, I think that's obvious. There definitely were German soldiers who were blood-bought, born-again believers. And then think about the American side. Was every American soldier a believer? Or did some good Christian believing, American soldiers fight alongside as friendlies with rank unbelievers in their battles, killing some Germans who were believers? I think it's an obvious answer. And I think this applies to other kinds of situations, political enemies and friends. Sadly, in 2024, we find ourselves in situations, in political battles, that cause us to not be able to fully trust even other believers sometimes, because they are political enemies. Some people will not lay down their lives for you, but would rather destroy it if it meant a few extra likes on Twitter, or a few extra invitations to speaking slots at the next conference, or a few chances for a new book deal or an interview on MSNBC. I'm not trying to create a hard and fast rule here, but oftentimes your enemies will provide you a lot of clues to help you trust your gut that they actually are an enemy, that they would destroy you in a moment's notice. Here's a passage of scripture. Again, this is Jesus. I think there's so many clues in here. You could apply these words to other people and get some clues as to who's an enemy, who's a friend. Jesus declares woes to the scribes and Pharisees. If anyone is presented as an enemy in the Gospels, I think the Pharisees are. That's their role in the story. I don't think anyone would deny that. Listen to what Jesus says about them and think through some of these clues. Jesus spoke to the multitudes and his disciples, saying, the scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Therefore, whatever they tell you to observe, that observe and do. But do not do according to their works. For they say and they do not do. They bind heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on men's shoulders. But they themselves will not move with one of their fingers. But all their works they do to be seen by men. They make their phylacteries broad and enlarge the borders of their garments. They love the best places at feasts, the best seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplace, to be called by men, Rabbi, Rabbi. But you do not be called Rabbi, for one is your teacher, the Christ, and you are all brethren. There's so much there that you can use to be smart about this. And let's not forget the bigger picture too. Think about how Jesus handled his friends and enemies in a general sense. This is the example I personally try to follow. God help me with this. Jesus, when dealing with the Pharisees, he uses strong language, sharp rhetoric, forceful words, even mockery. That's the example that we have presented to us from Jesus in the book. Think about Jesus dealing with his friends, the people being led astray by the Pharisees, the friends of God. There's a lot more sympathy there, a lot more tenderness, patience, assurance. It's such a helpful study side by side. When you look at how Jesus deals with friends and how he deals with enemies. I see so much of the opposite of Jesus' example displayed by evangelical leaders. The men that get the best conference speaking slots, the fully stocked green rooms. By the way, where's our green room? You're in it. All right. They get the biggest speaking fees, the warmest welcomes to places like the White House and others. I'm thinking of men like Russell Moore, Dan Darling, Tim Keller, David French. Think about how they engage. Every time they're given an opportunity to write for a major platform, the Atlantic, the New York Times, MSNBC, think about what they talk about, what they do. They give all the talking points about how run-of-the-mill Christians are people like us, people that sit in the pews. They're, bigots, how they're science deniers, they're basically Neanderthals, they don't love their neighbor. That's what they do when they're in public. I used to think that they were just missing it, like they didn't understand friends and enemies, right? Or maybe they were confused about the example of Christ, or maybe they were just picking and choosing. This is what I used to really think. I used to think they were just picking the nice parts of Jesus and saying, that's how I'm going to react, and then all the other stuff, they didn't want to, the hard words and stuff like that, they didn't want to follow. But I think I'm wrong about that. I don't think that anymore. I think they are following Jesus' example on how to deal with friends and enemies. It's just that they think regular Christians like you and me are the enemy. And they act accordingly. And because of that, I don't trust them. I wouldn't trust David French to feed my fish while I was on vacation, much less with my reputation or my life. And there are layers to this conversation about friends and enemies. Like, what I mean is, like, you could be friends in some instances and maybe not in others. There's complication here. It's not going to be black and white all the time. A lot of this, when you're trying to discern the difference between friend and enemy, it's not going to be helpful in many situations to put like a blanket over a certain group or stuff like that. A lot of this is a case-by-case basis with individuals treated as individuals and situations treated like individual situations. But I do want to leave you with something you can use that applies, I think, in almost any situation. And here we go. I'm going to riff on a Bible verse here. So again, I'm not preaching, just bear with me. It says in the Bible, if it is possible, as much as it depends on you, live peaceably with all men. And what I'll say to you is, if it is possible, as much as it depends on you, be a friend to all men. As much as it depends on you. Now, I'm obviously not denying we don't have real enemies. We do. Enemies are real and we're always going to have them. Obviously, we can't be friends to all men in reality. What I am saying is that I think sometimes, at least I do, maybe you do as well, we downplay the part where it says as much as it depends on you, as if it barely ever depends on us. Like, I know sometimes, like, maybe every now and then, maybe, if I really think about it, maybe it depends on me sometimes. But I think that's the wrong way to think about it. I think being a friend and living at peace with people depends on us a lot more than we think it does. I want everyone to understand this. People, listen, I know this is going to shock you, but sometimes people don't act right the way they should. Even people that are like natural friends, they should be natural friends anyway, they don't act the way they should. No, it's hard to believe. But I think you can still be a friend to those people. As much as it depends on you, and a lot of it depends on you. You want people, if you want someone to be a friend to you, here's what you do. Be a friend to them. If you want people to be your friend, you need to be a friend. You want proof? You don't believe me? Well, I already read you the proof. Here's what it says in the Proverbs. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. As much as it depends on you, be friendly. Even to people who don't act right like they should. You could absorb many insults. You could absorb slights. You can deal with unfriendly behavior in a friendly way. If you do this, I think, and oftentimes it plays to your advantage. In 2024, facing the situation we have as Christians, we need all the friends we can get. This is a strategy that will yield dividends. I can tell you from experience that it will. And even if it does it in this world, and I think it will in the long run, even if it does it in this world, God will see it and he'll reward you. But I think we have that assurance in the eternity. But I think seriously, people notice this. They do notice. I know people have noticed my own behavior in this area because they've told me. I can't tell you how many times I've been talking to a group and someone will say something like this. What do you guys think about so-and-so? Usually talking about another like public, a YouTuber or pastor or conference speaker. And usually someone with a questionable record talking about me, badly, talking about my friends badly. And I'll always say the same thing. Pretty much everyone who's talked to me about this kind of stuff, I say this kind of stuff typically. Unless it's like a really bad person, like Russell Moore or something. But I'll say it like this. He's a little wishy-washy on a few things, and I think he's dead wrong about XYZ, but overall, I like him. Overall, I think he's a good guy. And someone always says, well, ADO likes everybody. But it's not true. Actually, I don't like everybody. I have enemies same as everybody else. But I try my best, and I'm committed to treating people, even people I'm angry with or at odds with. I try to be a friend to people. And friends excuse a lot of things, insults, slights, the whole thing. I try as much as I possibly can to bear with people and be friendly, even when it's obvious that they're not acting the way I think they should towards me. I'm committed to being friendly as much as I possibly can, as much as it depends on me. And unless I'm completely out to lunch on this, and I really don't know what people think about me, I do think this is my reputation. That as much as I can, I try to be friendly with people. Here's some ways you can practice this. The Bible in the Proverbs tells us, we've read it already, the wounds of a friend are faithful. So I challenge you, when you hear hurtful words about yourself, or even right directly to your face, even if they're sharp, even if they're mean-sounding, or you think they're intended to do damage to you, my challenge to you is before you respond, before you react, because by the way, you might not even have to respond, but if you have to, think to yourself, really try to be honest with yourself. Could this be the kind of wound that is faithful? Could this be a wound that is from a friend? This is especially helpful when it's someone that you generally trust. You've trusted them in the past, and they say something that's hurtful to you. Consider, could this be a wound from a friend? Even if it's not someone you trust, just try it. Consider it long and hard. Here's the thing about wounds. Wounds are not pleasant. So they're not going to feel pleasant. So you can't go by feeling here. If someone says something bad about me, it's going to feel bad. So you got to try to really get past that stuff. It's not like the wounds from a friend are going to feel, oh, great, thanks, brother. It's not like that. That's not reality. They're going to hurt. Here's an example from my own life. There was a time, maybe some of you have been in this place, hopefully not too many of you. but there was a time when my pastor preached about me from the pulpit while I sat there with my family. The example he used in his sermon was too specific to not be me, but not specific enough that everyone would catch it. Now, it wasn't like a stern rebuke, but it was definitely it was stern, but a stern word of caution, let's say. Something that Christians should watch out to not do that I was doing. Using me as an example. Not everybody caught that he's talking about me, like I said, but my wife caught it, and I clearly did, and I knew a few others did as well because they came and asked me about it later. Now, here's the thing about this. I had a problem with this, as you might imagine. But it wasn't so much that he preached about me, it was just that, like, this is the first I've heard of this, right? Like, I find that to be extremely disrespectful. I'd almost rather him name me from the pulpit. To be honest, I respect that more. But like my position is, you got a problem with me, tell me, come to me. None of this passive-aggressive pulpit nonsense. I cannot stand that. Maybe some of you have been there. You don't have to raise your hand. Anyway, my wife and I were talking about it afterwards, and she was really mad and really sad. She was crying. And I was angry, I'm not going to lie. It seemed to me that my pastor was weak, effeminate, cowardly, pathetic, and I could think of many other choice adjectives to describe it. But we were talking about what we should do about it. Like, what should I do, And I started thinking about the words I was using, weak, cowardly, pathetic. And I started thinking to myself, what if I'm right about that? I think I am. But what if my pastor is, for some reason, intimidated by me? Like, what if, for some reason, he's threatened by me? Okay, and he really just is. He's a little bit weak, maybe a little passive. Let's just go with that for a second. What if that's true? I'm not saying it is true. What if? And I thought to myself, if that's true, maybe in his mind, he thought this was the only way to get through to it. And the only way he could do it. And when you take the slay out of it, like the disrespect out of it, at the end of the day, what is he trying to? He's just trying to help me. He wasn't even saying in the example that I was like totally wrong or in sin or anything like that. He was trying to warn me is what he was trying to do about something. And so really, he just loves me and wants to help me. And he did it in a way that I find disrespectful, but the core of it is what he was trying to help me. He was trying to be my friend. So I calmed down after I thought of it that way. And I thought to myself, this is the kind of thing where I could be like, they're wounds, but they're wounds coming from a place of friendliness. If he wasn't trying to destroy me. And maybe if he did use my name, maybe, and I would have respected that more in a twisted, weird way because I'm a weirdo. But maybe that would have been him, maybe in his mind, that would have been more trying to destroy me. He didn't want people to know he was talking about me, even though his example was too specific. Maybe he thought he was being slick. He was trying to protect me, but also help me. I think it's good practice to think that through when somebody, hurts you in that way. I think that's what a friend would do, right? Think of it that way. When you have friends and they do something stupid or wrong, like you don't lash out at them necessarily. You try to help them. As much as it depends on you, be a friend. Now, what if it wasn't like my pastor, right? What if it really wasn't friendly and they really were trying to destroy you? Well, I think that this strategy still works because we have a lot more wisdom from the Bible we can apply. If the wound is not friendly, you could just ignore it. That's a possibility. But if you do respond in a measured way, respond in a strategic way. You don't have to take the wound that someone sends your way personally. Few people know this, but it is possible to ignore an insult and not take it personal. Again, if my permission is not enough, the Bible says so. Ecclesiastes 7, do not take to heart everything people say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. For many times, this is the best part of this, for many times also your own heart has known that even you have cursed others. So don't take to heart what people say, because you might hear someone cursing you. By the way, you've cursed people before too. Be a friend to people. Be a friend to people, even if you're not sure that they're a friend to you. You hear some wounding words, first think to yourself, what if this is a wound from a friend? It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for man to hear the song of fools. If it's not the wound of a friend, it's okay to ignore it. Don't take it to heart. Not always easy to do, but be a friend to those people too. The wounds of a friend are faithful. As much as it depends on you, be a friend to all. It doesn't always depend on you. I keep saying this, but a lot of times it does. A lot more than you think. Here's something else you can practice. I think this one, especially in the church with other believers. 1 Corinthians 6, dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unrighteous and not before the saints? Do you not know that the saints will judge the world? And if the world will be judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smallest matter? Do you not know that we shall judge angels? How much more things that pertain to this life? If then you have judgments concerning things pertaining to this life, do you appoint those who are least esteemed by the church to judge? I say this to your shame. Is it so that there's not a wise man among you, not even one, who will be able to judge between his brethren? But a brother goes to law against brother, and that before unbelievers. Now, therefore, it's already an utter failure that you have to go to law against one another. Why not rather accept the wrong? Why not rather let yourself be cheated? No, you yourselves do wrong and cheat. You do these things to your brethren. Why not rather yourself be cheated? I can think of so many examples of this wisdom working out to my benefit. It's so counterintuitive to think this way, but you can be a friend in these situations. It's friendly to rather let yourself be cheated than to take your brother to court. It benefits you often immediately, and even if it doesn't, God will see it and it will reward it. Here's a couple of examples. There's if you know anything about me and John Harris, we've already talked about this, but we were some of the first people publicly opposing woke ideologies in the church. There were others, but there were not that many. And most of the people doing it were just like me and John. They're relatively unknown. And John and I, and you could talk to John about this afterwards, we both took a decent amount of heat for doing this. I think, John, you got it worse than I did for the most part. So thank you for that. But I
have no diversity. I've nothing.
Yeah, I had the Teflon shield of not being white, so it's okay. But I got my fair share too, So we took a lot of incoming fire for saying some of the things that we were saying. But there's been a shift that's happened that I've noticed and many others have. And the shift is many people are starting to say the same things that me and John were saying years ago. And that's a good thing. That's what we were hoping would happen. Even many people that would lob bombs at John and I, metaphorical bombs, of course. Even some of those people are saying the same things that we were saying a few years ago. And those people were criticizing us and warning people about us. They don't want to get too close to ADs, this kid, and all this stuff. But even some of those people are saying the same things we were saying. Total success, right? Here's the caveat. A lot of these same people who were ripping us before, but now are basically saying the same thing we were saying. And they're now saying the same thing. A lot of these people, they've come around, they still treat John and I like pariahs. And it's not that we need credit for the work, but maybe a little gratitude would be okay. Or maybe can you just leave us alone? That would be nice. But some of these guys let us take all the fire to them, for them, years ago, even to this day, treat us like we're the enemy. We're still the unwashed. This happens all the time. It's not just John and I. It happens all the time. It's likely to continue to happen. But here's my advice. Just keep going. Just keep doing the work. Know your role. Accept your role. Why not just rather accept being wronged? Why not rather just let yourself be cheated? People see. I think John's reputation, and I think my own reputation, they're both better for having not made a huge federal case out of this kind of thing. People see it. People see it. And a lot of times people speak up for us too. John was saying that 4 years ago, and you're saying he's no, we'll just leave it there. We'll just leave it there. But even if people don't see it, God sees it. Here's a better example, actually, because you can see the instant result on this example. I'm going to try to be careful the details here, because I don't want to get in trouble. But there's a ministry that I had insight into. I won't tell you how. everything's going really well with this ministry. There's no moral failings. We're growing in influence, quality of work, all kinds of stuff. But there was one issue. There was bad blood between kind of like the leader of this ministry and his old church. There was bad blood. There were some hurt feelings for sure. And there was definitely some gossipy stuff going on behind the scenes, spreading things about this ministry leader. And there was a letter sent out, like a very official letter outlining various issues. One of them had to do with an accusation of stealing that ministry from the previous church, like the name, the social media accounts, stuff like that. Now, many trusted men were aware of the letter, public men, They were aware of the letter and the accusations, and I was also aware of it. And they had talked to both sides extensively. And everyone, to the man, agreed nothing was stolen. No, the ministry was not stolen. I don't even know how you could do that. But no impropriety, no deceit, nothing like that. So it cleared this ministry that had these accusations against them. Totally cleared, exonerated. But the accusations were still out there. And there were problems being caused by this. So this ministry had a choice on what to do. And I'll be honest, where I landed on this is not the right side, I don't think. But my position, the advice I gave this person was hold your ground and just deal with the accusations as they come. If you have to defend yourself, defend yourself. You probably won't, but if you do, let the court of public opinion decide. Because everyone that's seen these accusations agrees nothing happened. This is just all nothing. So just hold your ground. That was one option. Or the other option was to not agree with the charges that I stole this ministry, but to basically make a peace offering. Basically say, how about we just buy you out of this ministry? You claimed you own it. I don't agree. But what if just to squash it, we gave you some money? And that will be the end of it. So that's what was done. That was not my vote, but that's what was done. A substantial payment was made to squash this. And let me tell you, this sounds so crass because it's money involved. I'll tell you why you're wrong in a minute. But honestly, since that payment was made, not only did they drop that accusation, because of course they had nowhere to stand anymore, but also pretty much every issue has been healed. Understanding, conversations, repair, reconciliation, so much has happened in a short time, like 6 months. And it's been amazing. And there's been cross-pollination now between this ministry and the old ministry, and like it's not all healed completely, but pretty much. It's been unbelievable. Better than anything I could have predicted. And all this was someone saying, let's rather be defrauded. Here, I'll pay you for something you don't own. So let me get back to the part where I said this might sound crass because it was money, but you gotta look at the book though. A feast is made for laughter, wine makes merry, but money answers everything. Don't get mad at me. That's what Ecclesiastes says. Why not rather be cheated? Who knows what could happen? Honestly, when I found out they were going to do this, again, it would get against my counsel. I was like, that's not gonna fix anything. It's just gonna be like, okay, fine, but they're still gonna do the things that they're doing. They're still gonna hate you. No, it fixed pretty much everything. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. Anyway, much more could be said, but there's just be a friend to people. Just assume that it has, like, as much as it depends on you, assume it does depend on you. And I'm not saying you're not gonna have enemies. Of course you are. But there's a lot with this speech is more about, like, because we know when, like, there's some people that are obviously trying to destroy us. I'm not talking about those people. The people that were like, we should be friends. Why are you saying this? We should be friends. Why are you acting this way? I've been in a few situations like that recently. Like, we should be working together. Why are you doing this to me? Just assume that your friendship with that person depends on you. How about having the patience of a friend, even when they act wrongly? How about saving your friend, plucking them out of the fire? How about having the mercy of a friend? Even dealing with enemies. How about feeding your enemy when he's hungry and thirsty, heaping burning coals at his head, and so doing? There are so many tactical strategies in the Bible when dealing with friends or even people that are not being nice to us. If we implement them, we have no idea what God can do with it. So be afraid as much as it depends on you, even when others act as enemies. Ask yourself, does it depend on me this time? It's okay to think super strategically about this. That ministry example, like, there was a lot of conversations about that, and we're thinking strategically. That's okay. It's not weird or, crass to think that way. You got to keep your objectives in mind, but I challenge you. When you hear, as much as it depends on you, just assume, maybe it's this time. Maybe this time it depends on me, because there's a good chance that it does. And with that, I'll leave it to John's discretion. We can end right there, or I don't know what we're doing after this, or maybe questions. I don't know.
Dave's the MCs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.